Hey, welcome in tonight to a special Tony Talking Trash about music. We're going to hop on a pony and ride on back over to Tulsa again to pick up another one of the great sons. I'm not done with Tulsa, man. I got some other ones to go. I've been working on, well, you guys probably know, but I've been working on J.J. Cale for a little while. Man, I didn't know a whole lot about J.J. before this, but one guy that I did know a lot about and really doesn't quite fit in the same realm of this. Good friend of Tom Petty's. Signed to Shelter Records, Leon Russell. I'm talking about the one, the only. Twilley Don't Mind, not Tweety Bird, but Twilley Don't Mind from Tulsa, Oklahoma, Dwight Twilley. Dwight Twilley made some wonderful pop music at the time. And he was born about 10 years earlier than me. He's already gone, and it's a shame he died in 2023, age 72. I'm only going to cover tonight. I'm going to rank his records on major labels. Those major label uh, excursions, at least in 12-inch format, came in from 1976, beginning with its debut on Shelter Records of the Dwight Twilley Band, which we'll get to in a moment, and then his final solo record for a major label, the CBS Associated label, which was kind of a funky deal, but it was put out in about 10 years later, and really has his virtues. We'll talk about those soon. What's kind of interesting is that I don't know whether it gets down to money. I don't know whether it gets down to, but eventually, Dwight Twilley started off really with he and another gentleman, and I'm going to go ahead and include this gentleman's work in this. And I'm talking about Mr. Phil Seymour. The famous video, Twilley Don't Mind, you see the vocals. That's Phil Seymour singing that. Phil Seymour has a wonderful voice. Phil Seymour's had a solo career, and, we'll talk about it. It went in different directions a little bit. Twilley's went in a bunch of different directions, and some of his records have some different sound. But at the heart of it, it's just a bunch of guys, starting off in the early time, having their own studio, doing things where they're not quite matching stuff up. It's got a nice, cool roughness, kind of like the early Runt Records did, or those things. When you've got people that are pretty accomplished at their home craft, I just love it. I love the sound of it. So, they went to Tulsa. They started off. They met each other in Tulsa in 1967. Phil Seymour, Dwight Twilley, and they decided to then leave Tulsa, go to Memphis, and then they went into Sun Studio and talked to some folks, and they went to L.A. And what's so funny is they go out to L.A. in 1974, and they meet and sign up with Shelter Records, Leon Russell from back home in Tulsa, which is really interesting. The group's name at the time for a while was Oyster. There's some different, albums out there about that. Really good stuff. It sounds the same, but I did not include it here in these. These were really, when you're talking about Dwight Twilley, you're talking about somebody who came up at a time when music could really be like that. It's kind of a mixture of some of the great power pop you heard of the time. You can hear Todd Rundgren, you can hear the Raspberries, but you can also hear a lot of Tom Petty. And Tom Petty actually at the time had some workings with him, and that's kind of what you end up with here. And it's just interesting when you have these records, what kind of variety that you get and what other people thought about Dwight Twilley. And it's a shame because, to me, in a way, you find that the earliest stuff that he did was, in my opinion, had a lot more soul. And they really had a nice spirit between he and Phil Seymour together. They sang together well. And Phil continued to sing on his records and all the way up through, I guess, towards the end. Not so much cross the other way. Phil Seymour made 2 solo records I'm going to include in this. I've got an opinion about those 2. Vastly different. One of them I really don't like at all. The other one I like pretty good. So it's amazing. He kind of took a step back towards their sound, but they did develop a sound, and it's more of a power pop sound. You can hear your Raspberries there. You can hear your Todd. You can hear your, power pop, even up to stuff like the Knack and things like that. Something good. But I've got 8 records that I'm going to rate, and these records essentially take us from What you would say 1986 is the latest one, and the earliest one is 1976. Now the Twilley and Phil and Phil left after the Dwight Twilley band, which really is kind of weird. The Dwight Twilley band, because Phil was equally blended in there. I think it was kind of weird, and I never really got a good explanation as to why it was a Dwight Twilley band. You know, Dwight's good looking, Dwight's a good player, had made great music. You know, whether he was promoted as a solo or whether he was reported with Phil. And even on his first record for Arista, you know, Phil's pretty heavily involved in that too. So it's a pretty good mixture together. And they grew up together. They moved together through a few different changes as the Dwight Twilley band. And then it was time for Phil to go his separate way and Dwight to go his separate ways. So when Phil went his separate way, he was kind of rebranded. And that's where I'm going to start the countdown here, number 8, with the first Phil Seymour record, just entitled Phil Seymour. Phil's a wonderful singer, wonderful drummer, actually played drums and bass on a lot of the early music. This is the great Boardwalk label, the one that signed Ringo later, the one that signed, I think, the best, maybe Kiki D was on that label. But you can see the look here, and he's got the straight thing going, and he keeps that theme going. This is a purple one and a red one. But, you know, this is a very much a pop record. This is a completely, in my opinion, different style. It's a very pop thing. It's almost going for, I hate to say a teeny bopper thing, but you can almost hear like images of, to me, Bay City Rollers, different kind of an approach or something like that, maybe danceable. And a pop star like that he could be. Somebody like you talking about Leo Sayer, something like that. I'm not sure what market he was really going for, but he was a hell of a good musician and a hell of a good drummer. And it just sounds to me like this music sounds the most controlled of any of the records that we're talking about. This is 1980, and it's going to be my number 8, the first Phil Seymour record. If you look through these songs and you look through Phil Seymour on side 2, you've got a Twilley song, Bill Pitcock song. Then you've got Kathy Valentine. You know who she is. She's a girl from the Go-Go's. So you've got people working here. Then you got Phil Seymour's songs. So you actually have a Twilley songs. You have extra songs. And maybe that's part of it too. Maybe it's the writing here. But you look at these stuff, and the first side, you know, his song, and another Dwight Twilley song. So it's just done in a completely different synth pop way. And it's an okay record. It's just not in the style at all, and the drumming and the pattern at all that fits the sound that Dwight Twilley has, which was largely borrowed by Tom Petty. I mean, Tom Petty borrowed from it heavily. I know they said Jacksonville or wherever Petty was from, some other place in the South, but certainly not there. I'm going to go next to number 7. Dwight Twilley eventually was signed to EMI Records. And the aforementioned Tom Petty spawned a hit, and this is from my number 7 record, Jungle. The song was Girls, and it's a nice song on here. There's some other songs on here, Max Dog, not bad, Jungle, not bad. But it's just You Can Change It, Cry Baby. All kind of people all over this record. Let me read you some of the folks here. Mike Campbell was on this. Susan Calso is interesting. Craig Krampf, Roger Lynn on guitar, Johnny May, Alan Pasqua keyboards, Tom Petty, Bill Pitcock, of course, Richie Zito, of course. So there you go. I mean, you've got this here. This is engineered by Mark Smith. This is done in the magical year here that we've talked about before. And that magical year is 1984. And believe me, you can hear it. But the thing that hurts worse about this for Twilley is the songs really aren't here. Not only is the sound displaced by synthetics and such, like many records are, but it doesn't sound as coherent. The Petty influence kind of is done to boost the deal, but to me it disrupts it disrupts the sound of things. Girls is a great song. I'm not saying it wouldn't work without that counter melody thing going on. But nevertheless, that's my number 7. A lot of people's favorite thing here. But I just don't, it doesn't sound inspired, regardless of what they do with it. In 1984 sounds like, you're moving into this and you're coming from a Tulsa sound that maybe via LA or via Memphis or whatever you say. Well, remember when I talked about, there's one record that I like a little bit more, and here it is, and it's a marked difference. I'd say there's a big difference between 8 and 7. I like Jungle a lot more than I like that first Phil Seymour record. And I like this a little bit better than I like Jungle. Why do I like this? This is a step back towards the sound of the Dwight Twilley band, which we're going to talk about their records later. Love Receiver, don't let Daddy find out, Dance in a Dream, Surrender, Looking for the Magic. That's a great Twilley song. Redone good. Talk to Me. You give good love, Suffering. A lot of Phil songs, but these Phil songs sound more done in this Memphis style, done in the style of the old DTB, and this is why I like this record significantly better. This is the second Phil Seymour record. It probably sold a lot less than the first one did. Once again on the wonderful Boardwalk label. Now, you just don't see these things out there much. But this one was a little harder to find. You can find that first one, pretty easily, and you should just leave that one. But this one's worth getting. I'd pick this one up. This is a good one, and this is 1982's. Unfortunately, last record we get from Phil Seymour, and it's a big improvement on the other one. Let me tell you, a big one. So I'm going to go next to what is thought of as a... I just never liked this as much. I've got into this record, played it a bunch. I remember I had it on tape. I listened to it a lot. I'm talking about Scuba Divers. I don't know what this is on here. This is not something that came from some other recent thing. But anyway, Scuba Divers. This is the first one on EMI Records. And it really kind of took off. I mean, this is a little bit more promising than what Jungle had. It was a little less affected by technology. Some of the songs were kind of silly. I'm Back Again is really, really nice song. Touching the Wind is nice. I found the Magic, of course. We talked about that, aforementioned with that, and once again here, we're talking about the same era as the Phil Seymour last record. We're talking 1982, the same exact year. And again, Tom Petty is involvement here. You can hear different things here with Scuba Divers. You have another beautiful. They always, Twilley was a good-looking guy, and they tried to take advantage of it in all these. You always get these beautiful headshots with him. He just looks like such a frickin' rock star, I guess he was similar in I wasn't as beautiful as him, but he's kind of reminds me of a space like that's a Midwestern boy or somebody from similarly could do. But these are all great songs that he wrote. Later that night, Dion Baby is okay. Crying Over Me is kind of silly. I don't like that. But again, you've got other people here, Twilley and Jeff Workman, but a lot of it's produced by Twilley himself. And so I think that they tried to do something a little more significant. EMI did to help. And, he never sold big numbers, not even with the DTB. It just never happened. This is 1982, and this is a wonderful Scuba Divers from 1982, my number 5 record. Number 4 is going to be his last record that I'm rating in this series from 76 to 86, and that is 1986's Wild Dogs. Now, this record is a little bit more natural sounding. This is a step way back, I think, from Jungle. And this is more of let's get back to a more natural sound. And then I don't know if you want to say John Cougar Mellencamp's more soundy, like if you're going to, from records of that time, if you're going to talk about. But it definitely had a more natural sound than decidedly. He kept the same people. You had Phil Seymour was on one track. Susan Calso was on all kinds of songs. I don't know if they had something going or what was going on, but the same crew. Jerry Sheff actually playing bass on this, which is nice, and of course Waddy's on here. Jimmy Haskell and Steve Goldwyn. So this is produced by Val Garay. This was done, and if something happened with this record legally, something with the label, somebody got confiscated money or something right before the release, and they still got to put this thing out. So it really kind of went out by itself. I remember he toured and such. It was just nice to see him be able to come back out. I should do my research to see who was in that band. But the songs here, Wild Dog, Sexual, of course. Shooting Stars is great. Spider and the Fly Not Bad, Big Baby Girl. This is a good record. This is a lot more sounding like the old Dwight Twilley. And I think that this is a special, once again, a special time. Let me see if there's we got any special sleeve inside here. I don't think there is. I think they could afford it this time out. I think this is one where just, you just got the regular one, the information on the back. That was the end of it. But you want to know comparatively maybe what they were going for at this time? The Hooters, maybe. That sound, 86. That was kind of a little more like that, a little more, maybe John Cafferty and the Brown. I don't know, that kind of production, which I guess is kind of Cougar Mellencampy, is it not? Number 3, I'm going to go to the debut, and they had a hit a year before this record came out, but this record came out in 1976, and I'm talking about on Shelter Records, the great Dwight Twilley Band, Sincerely. And look at Phil Seymour sitting on the back holding his little fun circle there, you can see in his hand, and Dwight Twilley beside, just good looking guys. And anyway, this was done by Shelter Records. This is released by Shelter Records. The truth of this is this was a surprise. This was a big surprise. They didn't expect this to be a hit. These guys went into this little studio themselves, and next thing you know, they come out with I'm on Fire. Ever since then, Bill Pitcock, even up to the last little bit there, and probably into a lot of the modern records that he made, Tulsa and onward, the Luck or whatever it was called. Anyway, Dwight on guitar and keyboards, and then on bass and drums, Phil Seymour, and it's where my fingers are in Phil's hair there. But that's them, and that is the Dwight Twilley Band, and that's what this is. Why called Dwight Twilley? Why it's not called Twilley Seymour Band? I don't know, because Phil really had as much to do with this. If you look at these songs, all selections written by Dwight Twilley and published by Music. So this is why Dwight was the writer. But as far as performing goes, holy majoli, I mean, Phil's all over it. And I guess that's why it was the Twilley Band was produced in Tulsa by Oyster. So an original Shelter here. ABC. Anyway, nice. What a great record. What a great sound. What a, you talk about power pop, the birth of power pop. Somewhere else the Raspberries is happening. Somewhere else, any of these other bands are all going at about the same time. I'm talking mid-70s, 1976. It didn't do well commercially, but to me, it worked fine. Seymour ended up singing background, great background singing. He ended up singing on Breakdown. I don't know if you guys know that, but it's his background vocals on that, and American Girl too. So he was really, his was important in the blend of it. And but anyway, that's what I'm talking about. The what I love about this record, England. I love England. I'm not talking about this. Baby Let's Cruise is really nice. This is just a great record, man. This is the sound of people falling in love with recording. People that love to get to press the record button and go forward. This is what this is. These are guys that are young, adventurous, and going for it. And there's some inconsistency in it the same way that you hear some other things. To me, that's the charm of it, brother. That's the sound of discovery. I love it. I love it. I don't care as long as it hits the sweet spot, man. I don't care about that. All right, let's talk about the final two now, man. These are hard. They're very close. These are very close. But I'm going to say for number two, I am going to go with da 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 da. The Twilly don't mind if it. Here she come, looking for the magic. Rock and roll 47, trying to find my baby. Sleeping, invasion. My God, every song on this is great. Produced by Bob Shopper and Oyster. And Oyster, of course, is the pre-name of these two guys. And if you look at them and you hear the vocals on this record, you know, Seymour's in the front as much as just the songs on this record, Twilly Don't Mind, start to end. Oyster, of course, being the original name of these guys. Every song power packed here. Just super. This is the second, or I guess this would be the Arista distributed version, or the Clive Davis involved try to push. But once again, man, this record, you know, this is just straight rock. I mean, you look at these songs. I don't know if you ever seen the video. Look on YouTube for Twilly Don't Mind. It's really something special. But this is great. Look at two great looking guys. Soon he would plow off and look completely different in that. But Dwight, man, Dwight was the power guy, the power vocalist, the keyboard player, the guitar player. And these guys were just two young guys from Tulsa that enjoyed playing. I don't really see any connection other than being from Tulsa and the maybe the effects that playing in a local bar does of that. And that's kind of what I like playing around here. Because I think a lot of the people that I think that play around here that came from here and still play around here, they don't really fit a style. Everybody says, well, people, countries, this and that. But a lot of the people I don't you know, that I know play don't do that. All right, man, let's get down to number one. It only leaves one, and you know what that is. That's the wonderful Twilly solo record from 1979. I think this wraps just the right amount of Beatlesque into the whole formula, into the Memphis sound, into the Tulsa sound, into the everything for the perfect match here. Out of my hands, nothing ever is going to change. Runaway is huge. Alone in my room takes a lot of love. Darling, oh my God, this is a great record. This is one that also features the other guys that we heard about. Bill Pitcock plays on it here. Phil Seymour sings background on Darlin', so that's why it sounds exactly like the Twilly band. It's just kind of perplexing as to why some of this stuff was marketed that. Look how weird that looks. It's kind of strange, isn't it? That's kind of neat, though. But Dwight is the man. But these are all his songs by him. Man, he's a writer, man. He's a guitar player, piano player, and he just likes to mess around in the studio. And so, on balance, man, it's a close call, but this is going to be my number one. The solo debut, so to speak, from 1979. The perfect mixture of the Beatlesque power into the power pop. And if I was going to nominate a couple records for here that would probably constitute 4.5 to 5 stars, it would be these two top two records. Sincerely would follow a little bit after that with 4 merely because it's rough. Most in the same way like that some of your records, you know, from 1970 sound a little bit more than that. I think there's a little bit of an increase from 76 to that. Their studio sounded a little bit in Tulsa, a little bit. It sounded better by the time they made their later stuff. Anyway, let me know what you guys think about the great Dwight Twilley. I know he passed on. Made some great records afterwards. I'm making no judgment on that. I just don't have a lot of knowledge of those, and those were a little harder to find it kind of from the CD age. I did have Tulsa. I thought that was decent. I never got that. The Luck or whatever it was called was supposed to come out. I know it was heavily bootleg, but I never got a hold of that. But anyway, thank you guys for tuning in here. Please let me know what you think about the Twilly guy, man. and Phil Seymour and any of those, if you ever saw them. I saw them at the Bayou a couple of times, man. They're a good band. But anyway, leave your list, leave your thoughts about Twilley here, and I'll get back at you with my favorite Twilley songs here before long. Thank you very much, and have a good evening, folks.